What is up, everybody? This is Alex from IHE TV. I'm gonna die in this house. I'm talking about Wuthering Heights, the new Emerald Fennell movie. So this is her third feature. I've seen all of her films so far, and I think she's actually getting worse. She's a beautiful symbol of being able to fail upwards from a place of distanced, immense privilege that I think is relevant because it is all over her work, and her art comes across to me as vapid, out of touch, and the definition of style over substance. Obviously, this is based on the classic novel, which I haven't read. I did see this with someone who is familiar with the novel, and in reading the basic kind of plot synopsis on Wikipedia, I was kind of shocked how interesting and gothic and kind of like a ghost story tragedy that it is, with the whole point of the story exploring the innate tragedy of a romance that blossoms in a time period where this forbidden love is simply not able to happen, with the nature of what women were expected to do contrasted against what servants were expected to do in their place in society. It's all about class, and Emerald Fennell being in the 1% of the 1% of people in the UK, you would think that maybe she would have a perspective that would be interesting or could give some insight, like I guess she tried to do in Saltburn as well, which also didn't work for me, but at least that was entertaining. My god. This is, I'm trying to dance, I like it. I'm actually really pissed off about this movie. I was so fucking bored by this movie. I'm happy if you want to go and have a wank for 2 hours and 15 minutes and watch basically a softcore porn Emerald Fennell fan fiction, loosely based on Wuthering Heights. But as someone who cares about narratives and characters and stories, for the entire runtime, all I can see is Margot Robbie and Jacob Elordi being sexy, doing sexy things, building up sexual tension. It's a fetishized aesthetic movie that isn't able to characterize or bring out any emotion outside of, wow, this is hot, I want to wank. It's a wanker movie. Now, the film does have pretty incredible production design. The sets, the lighting, the color palette, it's all top-class stuff. The moors are moody, there's fog everywhere you look, lots of nice on-location shooting. I know some people are upset about the historical accuracy. I'm not really a stickler for that. I think when you're adapting even classic novels, if you want to change things, you go for it. Do what you want to do what you need to do for your artistic vision, for what you want to say, but you got to justify it on some level. This looks incredible, but it is just in service of the most vapid, might as well be 50 Shades of Grey with a different skin over it, Emerald Fennell movie. But actually, on the note of the production, while it is as good as it looks from these screenshots, and yeah, there's some incredible stuff in there, a lot of the blocking is actually pretty bad, and the editing, which has been an issue since her first movie. A lot of scenes of dialogue being these really boring A-B shots that just flick between each other. A real lack of energy, especially with the way the camera is used. It tries to do similar to what Marty Supreme did, where it will use a piece of music that's obviously not accurate to the time period, but create some kind of interesting juxtaposition or tone from that. But this is the inverse, where I normally really like Charlie XCX, but the whole thing just felt like such a time capsule of 2025, 2026, instead of whisking your way to this other time period with the drama coming from the point in history in which it's set. This has a gargantuan $80 million budget. I felt like they were trying to do a Titanic sort of framing. It's like this big tragedy. They want everyone to go and see it and wank to it. And there's so much you could do with this story in a cinematic way, and it's not like this is the first adaptation of it. Andrea Arnold did a version of it in 2011, which I'm much more interested in her perspective with her background and what she could add to that. And I've been trying to find the words to critique this that have a bit more backbone or meaning and wind up having more resonance than the film itself. I don't want the critique to be as vapid as the film. I'm struggling to find the angle to communicate what pisses me off about this so much. But there's something emblematic about the film. There's the film itself and the qualities or lack thereof in one bucket, but it feels to me like a straw breaking the camel's back kind of moment that represents the attitude towards the arts in the UK, and especially with the film being about class and Emerald Fennell coming from where she does. If you don't know, she's the daughter of Theo Fennell, who's this enormous jeweler, silverware designer. So she was literally born with the silver spoon in her mouth. It's funny, I made the Nepo Baby tier list the other day and didn't include her because I wasn't counting jewelers to give you a distinct advantage from the entertainment industry, but obviously it's broader than that. If I was doing a true Nepo list, it would be 68 hours long. I guess part of what annoys me so much is the closeness with reading through her early life and education, seeing she was educated at Marlborough College, an extremely prestigious, extremely expensive public school. I don't know why we call them public, because they're not really open to the public. You have to spend like 60 grand a year or something. I bring this up because I've grown up in an area, 20 minutes away. I've seen this college, I've walked past it. I've seen the way they look down at you, how so much of the UK is this not even subtle class difference that embodies itself into every aspect of your life. And this is gonna turn into a big ass rant that's like only like partially inspired by this fucking film. But I'll get back to it shortly. But it's all linked, I promise you. There are a few things at play when it comes to the undervaluing of the arts and how the group of people that can even get into it at all are getting smaller and smaller over the past few decades in particular, for various different reasons, mostly economic, with it directly affecting me, with me being in the first kind of experiment group at school, with them cutting arts and music and media budgets and music and drama and basically anything that doesn't traditionally just make you loads of money, just being more and more devalued as things go on. But the reason I bring this up is because it leaves only really Emerald Fennells as the artists, specifically in cinema, who are able to communicate some kind of voice that's supposed to represent something to do with the country. But because it's been gatekept to such an insane degree, we have this repetitive, boring perspective that doesn't actually represent the people in the country at all. It's just this smaller and smaller group of people. And I'm just so sick of everything being pay to win. It's fucking boring. And it comes to a head with artless shite like Wuthering Heights. And it's so emblematic of everything that pisses me off about this country. Your perspective informs your art, and her perspective is one that I really don't value. A rich girl's fanfiction is a complete parody of itself, and is so blatant to me. This two-dimensional, surface-level attitude towards art that just oozes. Yes, I'm Oxford educated, I'm better than you. I don't need to treat this with any gravitas or respect or artistry because I know my edgy, apathetic audience just wants to see people fuck. I hate her films, in particular this one. At least Saltburn was entertaining to watch. All this hype around this movie being this, it's so horny, it's gonna make you like have a boner for 2 hours. Everything's squishy and wet and damp and it's, oh god, it's so horny. It's like, okay, that's fine if you want to make that. It's just that in the UK where it's such an absurd level of parody, with how it's only people like Emerald Fennell who are able to make movies on this scale, where when I was born, a lot of the people that were cherished and successful were counterculture and came from a perspective that actually could represent the average person. You know, look at the Beatles, for fuck's sake. Arctic Monkeys, The Smiths, The Clash. That's obviously the realm of music. But then if we're talking about filmmakers, she wants to be this edgy, transgressive, breaking down boundaries and, oh yeah, I went there kind of attitude. When these actual filmmakers from the UK, like a Shane Meadows, a Danny Boyle, obviously, Mike Leigh, and I already mentioned like an Andrea Arnold, these are what we should be striving for, not a tasteless, vapid Emerald Fennell. Even in the realm of actors, like look at the opportunity that came from a show like Skins, the amount of actors that to this day are incredible and only got their start because of stuff like this. Your Nicholas Hoult, your Dev Patels. A lot of these actors just couldn't exist anymore because of the climate, of what we prioritize, what we don't prioritize, what we don't subsidize. With Christopher Eccleston even coming out recently, and talking about this exact thing. Class is the last area that we can't talk about in this country. And I feel like a real challenging, transgressive filmmaker could take something like a Wuthering Heights and apply that to current day and give it a real oomph or meaning, or hell, even if you don't want to delve into that stuff as much, even though it's like the whole point of the story, if you want to emphasize the tragedy element, go for it. It is a tragic story, but because it is so fetishistic, is that a word? It is. And not really caring about the characters beyond this insisted idea that they have this chemistry, this innate connection from when they were little kids. And isn't it sad? Don't you want to be like crying and weeping? Like some people in my audience were like ugly crying at this, maybe showing how out of touch I am with what the average person wants from their movies, their art. But I don't care about anyone in this movie. Everyone is so unlikable, and that's partially what she's going for. Look at the depths that these lead characters are pulled into because of how they're not allowed to express their love for each other. It's a classic forbidden love type tension. And the toxic side of their relationship isn't played with in any interesting way. The only character that was kind of therapeutic for me was Hong Chau, who I always like whenever she shows up in a movie. She's awesome. But she says something like, you two are despicable. And it's like, yeah, you are. but you're not exploring this in a way where, say, something like Gone Girl, Phantom Thread, Possession, The Piano Teacher, these are all dark, twisted stories that explore the themes of something like a Wuthering Heights a lot better, with a lot more sophistication or honesty than anything that even comes close here. And I think it's her scripts, it's her writing. I just don't think she has the perspective and just feels like empty provocation for the sake of empty provocation. It's shameless, it's self-indulgent, and even if you ramped up that shamelessness, you know what? Maybe that would be entertaining. I thought this was an awful piece of shit. Its enormous budget was made back in one weekend, so this is probably going to wind up being one of the biggest films of the year. This really cements how I feel about Emerald Fennell as a filmmaker. So many bad attempts at humor, awful child acting, tonally all over the place and just kind of muddy. I give this a 1.5 star, with that half only being there because of that effort put into the production design and the lighting and a lot of that technical stuff that is wasted, but whatever. So let me know if you agree at all with me, or if I'm overthinking this or projecting or coming at it with a certain bias. I know I am, but it's kind of like what's made me so upset about this bullshit. Unwatchable horse shit.